Howdy, parents. I'm sorry that didn't quite finish the meeting earlier, and so we're sitting at my kitchen table now, and I have my Dr. Pepper shake that's powering me through the rest of this. By the way, if you've not tried it, it's awesome. Go get you a Dr. Pepper shake. But just a few more things that I wanted to touch base on, and we can finish from my kitchen table. And by the way, the kitchen table is easily one of the best places in the world for family ministry, so take advantage of that. But we'll talk about that some other day. So we recently asked your students the question, it was in connection groups. We said, how often do you think about God and his plans for your life? And I wish I could tell you that we had some awesome responses, but by and large, it was really, really sad. The overwhelming response was, I don't think about God and his plans for my life very often. The second most common response was this, though, and it might have even been sadder, and that was, I don't know that God has a plan for my life. I only bring that up to say that this is where our students are at. This is where your kids are at. Again, we're not shaming anybody. We're here to encourage you. But in order for us to win this thing called discipleship with our students, we have to know where they're at, and this is where they're at. They don't think about the Lord all that particularly often, and especially not God's plans for their lives. So with that in mind, we want to keep pursuing that option. I want you to ask yourself a hard question, though, if you're trying to evaluate, hey, where is my kid really at? A diagnostic question that might be helpful is this. Ask yourself the question, if my kid left for college today, or if my kid left for the Army today, or if my kid went to be a firefighter today, or whatever, they're done with high school and they're leaving my home, do you believe that they would be in church next Sunday if they left today? And then the follow-up question to that was, do you believe they would still be in church 3 months from now? And again, there's no way to know that for sure, but just knowing where your kid is at right now spiritually and everything you know about them, and you are the specialist on your student, there is very little that I could probably tell you about your kids that you don't know already. Although I can tell you firsthand that sometimes it's hard to be honest about our own kids. We try to look at them through rose-colored glasses, and sometimes that's helpful. But when it comes to the spiritual thing, we want to be brutally honest with ourselves so that we can better minister to them. So again, ask yourself that question. If my kid left home today to go to college, do I think that they would be in church next Sunday? And do I think they would be in church 3 months from now? Got this quote from Don Whitney. He's a professor at Southern Seminary. I thought it was pretty helpful. It says, having your children in a good Bible-teaching local church is one crucial aspect to Christian parenting. But it's not enough for conveying your faith to your children. Moreover, it is unlikely the exposure to church once or twice a week will impress your children enough with the greatness and glory of God that they will want to pursue him once they leave home. So again, just reemphasizing this point that we had while we were in the LC together. Guys, if your students' only spiritual conversation during the week is the 1.5 to 2.5 hours that they are at LABC, compare that against the 168 hours that is their total week. That's really not a lot. That's not enough for anybody. If you want to use the food analogy, we would say if you only ate one time a week, you would not be a healthy person at all. Fasting is great, but if you fasted if you fasted just one meal a week all the time, you wouldn't be healthy in the least bit. This is sometimes how we treat our souls. We feed ourselves once, maybe twice a week, and call it a week, and it just doesn't work. It especially doesn't work with students who are still developing in their faith period. So with that thought in mind, let me give you what I hope will be 4 really practical tips that you can use to begin or continue wherever you're at in the family discipleship process. Let me give you 4 things that I think will be helpful, stuff that I've discovered, am doing, or just been involved in, and I think is good stuff. Number 1, when it comes to your teenagers at least, whenever you pick them up from church on Sunday morning, Wednesday night, discipleship group, whatever, don't ask them the question, what did you learn? Instead, ask them the question, were you encouraged or challenged to love and obey Jesus today? And here's the difference, and we talked about this a little bit today. The goal when we gather together as a body of believers isn't to learn something new. The goal is to be challenged and encouraged to love and follow Jesus more readily. There's any number of times where any of us show up at church and we don't learn any new information, but that doesn't mean that our time was wasted. Because it's not about gathering new information. It's about being changed by the Spirit of God and the opening of His Word. And so ask your kids that question. Say, hey, were you challenged to love and follow Jesus? And when they say yes, and I promise we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they can say yes, then follow up with the question, just quite simply, just say, how so? In other words, what did you learn? What did you look at? You're doing several things by following up in this manner. Number one, you're showing your kids that you are genuinely interested in their spiritual development. But number two, it's giving you some insight into what we're going on, what we're doing, and I'm going to do a better job about helping you know what's going on. But as your students are answering these questions, it's giving you understanding of where they're at theologically and what they're understanding, what they're not understanding, and then you can have further conversations with them about the scriptures. You can share with them the stuff that you know from the passages that we're following up. Again, my goal is to set you up so that you can be the hero and the champion of this deal, because you already are. I just want to affirm that in you, though. So again, don't ask what'd you learn. Ask them, were you challenged to love and follow Jesus? Number two, pray with your kids daily. And you've heard me say this before, but I will not stop emphasizing this. This isn't just basic Christianity. This is the most important thing that you can do with your children. Pray with them. Don't notice I didn't say for them. Pray with your kids. Whether it's, again, before they go to school or before they leave the house or before they go to bed or whatever. Have a daily, regular prayer with them. And again, I'm at the dinner table, but the prayer before your meal doesn't count. Pray with them and then ask them a question. And I'm having fun with my kids on this, and they don't always have an answer, and that's okay. But ask them, hey, what's something I can pray for you about? Eventually, they will start talking about that, and that's going to lead to some really cool conversations with them. But pray with your kids daily. I'm going to offer a new challenge, and this might feel a little bit outside the box, but the more I think about it, the more I pray about it, I think it's going to be helpful. I want to challenge you to have your kids sit with you on Sunday morning instead of in the student section. Now, I think the student section is cool. It looks really neat to have them all up front, and it just, it looks awesome. But I really believe with all my heart that if our students were sitting with their families on Sunday morning, lots of stuff is happening there. As a family, you're just experiencing the work of the Lord together collectively, and that's a beautiful thing. But also, your students are taking cues from you on what worship looks like. Now that means, we might have to take worship a little more seriously. We might have to pay attention. We might have to get off our cell phones. And honestly, I'm not saying this from a discipline standpoint, because yes, there are plenty of times when Becca and I are going, stop talking, pay attention, right? But that's likely not going to happen if they're sitting with you. But truly, more than anything, they're learning how to worship with their family. And they're learning from the specialist in their lives, mom and dad, on how to worship the King. And so I really believe that this would be a healthy and holy thing. Now, this isn't from on high, hey, there's not a student section anymore. This is just a challenge from me to you. Next Sunday morning, hey, tell your kids, y'all come sit with me this week. I just think we'd start to see some fruit from that. Last thing is have just once a week, a weekly family worship time. Now, when I say family worship, I don't mean, Dad, you have to get out your guitar and lead everybody in song. There may not be any singing, and that's okay. It may be as simple as you just opening up the scripture and just reading a chapter together as a family. And you can talk about it. You can ask questions. If you want to prepare a devotion, that's awesome. If you don't know how to do any of that stuff, guys, I'm sitting on like 150 family devotions that are just ready to go that I would joyfully send to you to help you get started. There's a handful of resources that I've got that are just really, really helpful, and I want to start arming you with those things. But just do it just once a week. Again, use the eating principle. If you only ate once a week, or if you only ate twice a week, you would not be a healthy person. The most healthy thing that we can do, besides being in the Word for ourselves, is as parents, as fathers and mothers, is to open up the scriptures with our kids. And so do that, again, just once a week. That's a very, very doable thing. Pick a time that's convenient. It doesn't have to be a full-blown 1 hour thing. In fact, I would encourage you 10 or 15 minutes tops. Be engaging, be encouraging. And again, I've got some resources I want to send your way if you're interested in that. I've got a handful of things I want to start sending you on a regular basis. But I really think this will be helpful to you. And so engage your kids in that way. Last thing I want to offer you, and it is I call it the TJV. This is the TJ version of Matthew chapter 16, verse 26, and it goes back to that thought that we mentioned back in the loft. But it just says this: what will it profit a church kid if they gain the whole world through academic and extracurricular success if they still lose their soul? Guys, truly, this isn't me speaking. This is from on high, from Jesus. There is no greater thing, no greater responsibility, no more important job, no more specific task that we have than to lead our kids to the cross and to help them love Jesus. And we already do a good job of helping them love all sorts of stuff. There's, my kids, even when we lived in Arizona, when they were learning to talk, they knew they were Texans because I taught them to love Texas. I taught my kids to love Texas A&M University. All of you have taught your kids to love something, whether it's intentional or unintentional. Let's intentionally work to love Jesus ourselves and teach our kids to love Jesus themselves. And here's the best part about it, guys. The Holy Spirit will help us. He's promised so. This is the task He's given us. He's going to help us do it. So let's work together to help our kids love the King. Guys, I love y'all. Have a great week, and we'll see you later.